Hi there friends, it's Cassie. Welcome back for another video here on my YouTube channel. Today I'm just going to play and have some fun. I always do that here on my channel, but today I just decided to pick some stuff up and make a card. And this card may not look very simple, but believe me, it actually is. So let's get into what we're using today. I've pulled out a bunch of Tim Holtz products. We'll talk about them a little bit. So we've got our label stickers. These are awesome. They give that little punch effect. I forget what that little thing's called, but it gives that effect. We also have our funky foliage Thinlits. We have our tiny toadstool stamp. We've got our Kraft stock, and this is the cool shades. And then I also have a whole pack of backdrops. That's the number 4. And this is what I'm talking about with simple. We're going to pull this out and we're going to just kind of make this background look even better than it already does, if that's possible. So I've pulled out this one. There's so many great ones in this, and if you get a little bit stumped, I say pull out a background like this and see what you can do with it. Because sometimes just looking at a white piece of cardstock can be a little bit intimidating, trying to fill it up with things and make it look all kinds of cool. So let's take a background that already looks pretty cool and we'll make it even better. So I'm taking this one and I'm going to trim it down to be 4¼ by 5½ inches. So yeah, the full front of an A2 size card. And I'll save the rest of that for later. That one little chunk I am going to set off to the side because we'll probably put that on the inside of the card. And then I'm going to open up our little, this is called the tiny toadstool stamp. When I bought this, I was just like, yeah, I love the little mushrooms. They're just speaking to me. And I'm kind of probably out of season. This is probably more a little bit fall, but I just wanted to play. I was so inspired by Tim Holtz the other day when he was talking. I don't know if you caught it. I will try and link it down below. Just talking about using what you have and trying not to be so overwhelmed by all the new releases that constantly come out. I mean, obviously, I'm still going to keep showing new releases, but from time to time, I just want to jump in and use what I have and show you that. And maybe something that you already have in your stash, and it will inspire you to pull it out and get a little inky. Or maybe it'll inspire you to pull something else out that you have in your stash and get a little inky. So as you can see, I've just kind of inked up a few of those stamps. I'm using some ground espresso distress oxide ink because that stuff is pretty good for stamping. And I'm just going to stamp it all over that background, just add a little extra to what's already there. And then I'm going to bring in some tea dye and we're going to stamp that on there. And that's, again, some distress oxide. So that'll sit right on top of the paper rather than kind of soaking into it. And then for a final bit of what I'm going to do to this background, I'm going to bring in my blending buddy along with some vintage photo, the old classic there, and I'm just going to ink up the edges. That's going to distress those edges a little bit, frame up the piece, and then, I don't know, I just love how this turned out. It's a background that looks more complex than it really is, and it all started because of the paper that I chose to use. So here it is. Looks great. So I'm going to set that off to the side while I pull out these little Thinlits. Now that's the funky foliage. And there's so many great ones in here. I am absolutely going to be using this one over and over again. And I did go ahead and pick up some of these Kraft stock, and this is the cool colors. And now that I've really seen these, I think I'm going to have to get more of the other colors. So the back side is Kraft, and that front side is a color. And you can distress these and make that Kraft exposed if you'd like, or even just use the Kraft itself. I'm going to pick up the dies that I want to use and then just cut out the cardstock from there, and then we'll die cut those when we're ready. Using what's left on my blending buddy, I'm just blending around this circle that I die cut out of some cardstock I had in my stash. And then now I'm going to bring in my Spellbinders Scout little mini die cutting machine. This thing's fabulous. I actually use it quite a lot, and it's always sitting on my desk because sometimes you just don't need to use the big die cutting machine. I'm not saying you have to have both, but I really do like having the mini one because a lot of times most of my dies are just a little bit smaller, and this works perfectly. So I'll run that through my die cutting machine, and these Thinlits cut like a dream. And they cut right through that Kraft cardstock, and I don't want to say it's a thicker cardstock, but it's a pretty good quality weight there. All right, so we'll put all that away, and then you can kind of take a look at how these dies turned out. Like I said, I really do want to get some of the other colors now that I've played with the cool a little bit. And I'm going to show you what I mean by how this cardstock can be distressed. I have the little sanding pads. I've had these for a while. These are the sanding discs that go with the blending tools that Tim Holtz has out. And so I'll just stick that on there, and then you can sand your pieces. Now this one was using that like burgundy type color or purpley burgundy color, and I'm sanding away the top just a little bit so that it distresses the paper, and it also exposes a little bit of that Kraft cardstock that's underneath. And yeah, once you see how I've put the leaves behind it, you'll be able to see a little bit more of that Kraft showing through. And I'm also going to do it to this one piece. I could have gone ahead and die cut these out of some various colors, but I just wanted to, again, keep it fairly simple, use what I had sitting in front of me, and not grab too much else. All right, so now I'm going to ink up this one, that little center of the flower, using some mustard seed distress oxide and a little mini blending tool. It's those little tiny ones. And now I can add a little bit of glue to that back of the twig here, and then I can attach that down to our little leaves. And I'm going to keep doing that. But like I said, I'm going to have that Tim Holtz video. I'm sure most of you have already seen it, but it will be linked down below for those of you that are curious about what he was talking about and how he's said he's not really going to be creating new product. And I mean, I can get behind that. He wants to be a maker. Do what makes you happy. And if making makes you happy and maybe designing is not where it's at anymore, then make, you know. I've kind of stepped away from a couple of the design teams that I was on, mostly because I wanted to have a little more time to do things like this. Just play with what I already have. And yeah, this just made me so happy to sit here and do this. All right, now I've got my card base ready to go. That one measured 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches, and I scored it at 4.25. I'm going to glue down my panel to the front of my card base. Again, I can't get over how that background just looks so much more complex than it originally was. And it certainly wasn't hard to make. So that's what I meant by attaching that little chunk. We're going to put that on the inside. And then instead of attaching the circle right down, I'm going to go ahead and attach down a little bit of that foliage to the front of this circle. Just using some liquid glue. Tweezers, reverse tweezers would be really helpful here, but I was able to hold them just fine. I like this little fern piece. It's so pretty. Love the detail on it. And there's so many more dies in this set. So like I said, I'm going to be revisiting this one quite a bit because it just makes me happy. There's a couple of mushrooms in there. There's a lot more flowers. You've got acorns. I know it's probably more of a fall set, like I said. I feel like we could make it springy if we really wanted to, you know, depending on the cardstock colors that you choose. But I don't know, it just makes me happy. So now I'm going to add a little bit of foam tape behind our circle, and then I'll peel off that release paper, and we can stick that down after I've chosen which one. We're going to make this a birthday card, because I need to re-up my stash of birthday cards. So peeling off that release paper, now we can stick this down on top. And then I'm going to pull out the happy birthday. Now these are sticky back, which is great, but I want this to be popped up a little bit like the circle is. So I'm going to take a chunk of that foam tape that I just used, and we're going to attach it to the far right side. Just a chunk. Peel off that release paper, and then we can attach this over the top of the circle just a little bit. Now I didn't want to stop there. I did want to embellish a little bit, so I brought out some of these little Trinity stamps. They are the flat back sequins, and these ones are called Magic Mirror. So they're mostly black, but depending on how the light hits them, they have various different colors, and I thought this went so well together. So I'll use my pickup stick along with some liquid glue and adhere those down. But I really like how this turned out. It actually was a super simple card. I know it looks a little more complex than it actually is, but I love it. So if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button. Definitely consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And as always, I will see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.